Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Charles Green and I'm part of the marketing team here at Belatrix Software, and I'm going to be your host today. Firstly, thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules today to join this call. For those of you not familiar with us, Belatrix is a leading provider of software development services with particular expertise in product and mobile application development. And we frequently publish reports on the key trends in software development. And today we're focusing on continuous delivery and continuous testing. And to help us explore this topic and to share their insights, I'm delighted to be joined by Stephen Winter, the founder and chief strategist of GuerrillaQA, and as well as Federico Tacchini of Belatrix. First up, Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of background to GuerrillaQA?
Thanks, Charles. Hello, everyone. Yes. I have been breaking fine software for the last couple of decades with a key focus around financial services, financial products, and specifically mobile products over the last 10 of those years. And recently founded GuerrillaQA to take what we've done over those years and turning it into a much more focused solution. And really looking forward to talking about our topic today. It's a keen interest of mine.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. And Federico?
Hello, everybody. Well, as you know, I'm Federico. I got a degree on systems engineer 5 years ago, and I've started in Belatrix as a member of a QA team. And then I moved to development, and I've been working on development for the last 5 years in one of our biggest teams here in Belatrix. And well, I have been learning, and I'll try to share my experience today with you on continuous delivery.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So I should note before we get started that we're going to be live tweeting throughout the webinar today with the hashtag #ContDelivery. So you can follow along with Twitter, but you can also use the hashtag to ask any questions that you may have. You can also ask questions using the chat box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen on the GoToMeeting. And we'll do our best to take questions as they come, but we also have some dedicated time right at the end to answer all your questions. So without further ado, let's jump right into the heart of the presentation. So Stephen, why should our listeners care about implementing continuous delivery?
That is a fantastic question, Charles. Thanks for asking. So let's run on to the next slide, and we'll get going. So in my experience over the last, let's say, 4 years, I have seen the trend moving from continuous integration to continuous testing as a result of that continuous integration, and into now the continuous deployment, continuous delivery model. Being located in the central San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, it's now become the majority trend. If you don't have some kind of continuous delivery background when you're going for a job, it's almost becoming a liability. And so I've also been speaking at many conferences over the last year, and several just this year alone. And the feedback that I've been receiving is it's a much more of a trend. People are trying to move faster. It's the same problems we have always had. Everyone who's on this webinar, I'm sure, you have all had the very same problem you've been trying to figure out and you struggle with, whether you are a small shop or a very, very large enterprise. You have to do more, you have to do it faster, and you have to do it more efficiently and cheaply. Sound familiar? I'm sure it does. And those same problems are going to be constant, right? So the difference is that there are now tools and methodologies and proven experience and practices that are in the market right now that you probably use every single day. If you move to let's go to the next slide. These major organizations have all adopted this methodology, and this delivery style, where they are sending, 20, 60, hundreds of small deployments to production every single day. And it's not by some one single person who is the gatekeeper, the build engineer, and you have to take the production site down to deploy something and bring it back up. Oh, no, no, no. It's empowered by the engineers. It's empowered by the product owners. It's empowered by the DevOps and QA people. It's empowered by the entire organization. So if you use any of these particular four that we just happened to mention here, Amazon, Etsy, Facebook, eBay, these guys are going live every single day, all day. So when you look at just these big folks, and based on the feedback that I've been receiving and hearing over and over and over again, my conclusion is that more and more people are doing continuous delivery. So competition is getting harder, and it's getting faster, and it's moving quickly. And I can tell you that many people I talk to are not doing continuous delivery. It's seen as a elusive pipe dream, like, oh gosh, someday we'd love to do that. It's like buying the fancy Lamborghini that you never think you're going to be able to get to. It's so elusive. But we're here to tell you that it is not as elusive as you think. Yes, it's hard, but it is worthwhile, and it's something that I recommend everybody embraces to keep pace in this market. So, what is continuous delivery? There's many different definitions. There's many different ideas around this. So, let us try to give you, at least our humble view of what we believe it is today and what we see it is today. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So this is a lot of info, and ultimately, what I want the takeaway for you to take away from this slide, that you are developing small units of work and adding tests at the same time, all up front. You are building quality in up front. You're taking the time to do that. So when you check in your code as a developer, when you check in your code, you're working on that story, you've developed your stuff, you added your tests, you check it in, it triggers some of build and unit testing frameworks. That's going to give you immediate feedback as a developer. Before you're merging down to master, you're going to get immediate feedback, and it's expanding the traditional role of unit testing. As traditionally, unit testing, is a very atomic, small test, inside of a class, right? It's not an end-to-end test. It's not a full functional test or system test. It's a very, very small unit of work. The difference here is you're expanding what you're calling a unit test. You're now including some form of integration tests against some kind of APIs, maybe, and some kind of database mocked out. Maybe you are doing some kind of basic UI. If you're doing some CSS or UI work, you're adding to that unit testing section right there, so that you get better, faster, stronger, more reliable feedback. And this is happening immediately, right? This is not a day or two later. So once it goes through that pipeline, then it pumps out to some kind of a staging and testing server. And this is where you're adding the next layer of tests. That typically you have quality engineers who are delivering and supporting that test scope. And then that happens immediately, and that feedback comes back immediately. This is all happening in real time. This is not, I think in terms of, quote unquote traditional Agile with a 2-week sprint, you typically are not getting test result feedback until, middle later on in the sprint. And at least that's what my experience has been and what I've heard from the field. When you're doing continuous delivery and you're building all those tests in up front, and you're getting contribution of test development from the quality assurance team, the quality engineering team are contributing test coverage up front, building the quality in up front, you are getting broader, more reliable feedback much faster, and therefore, once everything goes green, your stoplight report, comes back and everything shows green, then there's no reason why it can't go out to production immediately. So continuous delivery is based on test-driven development, business behavior-driven development, TDD, BDD. So it's an expansion of test coverage, like I said a couple of times, building quality in up front. It is increasing the scope and automating as much as everything as you can, including your functional regression testing. Maybe if it's a web application, your browser compatibility testing, and then getting into non-functional tests, baseline security tests, baseline performance and load tests. Maybe you have ADA compliance, you build that in. Maybe there's regulatory demands. I mean, I'm coming from, the banking and finance world, so, auditable regulatory requirements are a reality as much as they're a pain. They're a reality, and, we would build in, baseline tests around even that stuff. So that way, when we saw the reports that everything was green, we had full confidence that we could go live with it. Continuous delivery and continuous deployment also, when I believe you're doing it correctly, you're leveraging configuration flags, feature flags. And it's essentially a fork in your code that you can turn on or off that feature or part of that feature. And why are you doing that? Well, that way you can have many contributors. This is a single pipeline flow that you're looking at, or single developer flow. Now imagine, you have, one-to-many developers. They're all doing this at the same time, and you're leveraging all these tests, individually for each one of them. And so where you get to is you can turn on and off the features that you're developing, and you can deploy those out into production, without them being visible to your users. That way you can be testing, because you have the keys to those features and flags that are turned off. You can be testing in production. I love the meme that says, I don't always test, but when I do, I test in production, which as a QA guy from way back when, that always would make me cringe. But now it doesn't. Now I see the value of it, because I can test and test and test with real data, with new code that's not exposed to the user yet. And once we have certified that everything's working fine, then we can give the actual business owners, the product owners, the ability to turn on and off those features, which is extremely powerful. Did you build that feature right? Yes, no. And when the product owner looks at it and says, yes, that's exactly what I wanted, then they push the button, and magically all of it is exposed. And it's already been in production, it's already been tested in production, it's just now exposed. So that is a key part of continuous delivery. There's a fantastic set of slides from Etsy.com on SlideShare that we'll provide for you later in this presentation that I learned a great deal from. It made a lot of sense to me and to many of my teams and my clients when discussing this. So I would love to share that with all of you and have you go check that out, because that, I believe, will help answer many more questions, because this is a big deal. This is it's complicated, and it's not an easy effort, but it is definitely worth the effort. One of the key things I want to share is that the mere pursuit, and I've seen this over and over now, the mere pursuit of continuous delivery, just trying to get there, even if you never make it there, will make your organization better. You're embracing a test-first culture. You're embracing a higher quality culture. And at the end of the day, the reality is that it's cheaper, and you move faster, and you check off those boxes that I said in the beginning. You're getting more done with higher quality, and it's cheaper. There's less bugs to fix. You're getting features out the door faster. Users are happier, and you're making money faster. At the end of the day, you're making money faster, you know, which makes everybody happy. So can we move on to the next slide? Almost. There we go. So I'm gonna hand the microphone over to Federico now, because one of the challenges that I've seen over the last couple of years in moving to this you know, to this model is there's a pretty big cultural shift, and engineers, you know, my experience has been, you know, engineers are like, hey, wait a minute, you know, we have a QA team to write all those tests. You know, why do I have to write all these more tests? I want to, you know, write more code to do more features to solve more architectural problems. You know, I don't necessarily want to be writing more tests. And that's a valid response, you know, but in the end, you do get to move faster. You do have less bugs in the code that you're delivering, so your coding quality is going up. I mean, so I want to let Federico talk about it, because I could go on and on about the benefits of it, but I want you to hear straight from the horse's mouth. So Federico?
Thanks, Stephen. So yeah, when you're a developer and you're first presented with the idea of doing continuous delivery, and you are told, okay, we need to start writing a whole lot of tests, you won't be just building your code, you'll need to communicate more, so then the QA team know what you're doing and they can write their automated tests at the same time. I mean, that's a stress point right there, because you at first think you are losing your time. I mean, you think, okay, I'll spend less time developing, and at the end I'll have a worse result because I'll produce less features. But then you start doing it, and you realize that it's not like that. I mean, first of all, when you start seeing the results of your work come out quickly, and being every day presented to the client, you feel like it's really pleasing. I mean, and motivating. It's like I'm doing stuff that the guys are actually using right away. And there is another point here, because there's nothing more stressing than building something that doesn't end up being used. I mean, you may have planned all that you do, you may have planned your architecture, you may have planned a great app, but if it's not accepted by clients, it's better to know that earlier. Otherwise, you're losing months of work. So having that quick feedback, it's really helpful, and it's the best thing. Something else is that having quick feedback also helps with bugs. You get bugs quickly, you fix them quickly, and you forget about them. And there is a whole QA team supporting you on that, writing automated tests for the same bugs not to happen again. And I think our key point is that you can focus on what comes next. So having less bugs, stories, having less story points on things that you have already done, on bugs that you have already fixed, and stuff like that helps you move forward, help you build new code, and not focus on what you've done in the past. It's always hard to go back to something you did before, just to find a bug that you didn't realize was there at the start. So the quicker the better. This is my opinion, of course. I don't know if you want to add something else here, Stephen.
No, that's great. I'm glad to hear you reiterate all that, because it's very real results, you know, that I have seen. The fact that you can fix here's my big bold statement around QA. The greatest gift QA team can give to its company is getting reliable test feedback faster. Getting test feedback to the developer immediately is the greatest achievement, as far as I'm concerned, that a QA team can help with. And most importantly, because we all know that fixing a bug earlier in the process is infinitely cheaper than fixing a bug after it went production, right? We've all seen this the hockey stick slide, the graph that shows 1x, 10x, 100x, 1000x, based on when you're finding the bug. Well, if a developer can get real-time feedback and fix it right in the beginning, well, we all know that that's cheaper, and that's what this really delivers. If you could move to the next slide. That's exactly what I have been seeing is the sheer speed of getting those test results back. The reliable, trusted test results. Let me be clear with that. The reliable and trusted test results that are coming back. When you start building a quality culture and you're building it in at front, you just get better and better at building those tests. And you get better and better at building that pipeline of test result feedback to the developer, not to the QA people. I don't care about all the test results. Ultimately, I'm not the one, designing the code and fixing the code. I want to get it to the developer so they can do something about it. And that is exactly what I have been seeing over and over. I'm a complete convert at this point. So, the speed happens. You're getting higher quality because you're fixing bugs earlier, and those bugs aren't, and you're automating those bugs. You're fixing it, and you're actually automating, the test of those bugs. It's not just fixing the bugs, right? So that bug's never going to happen again, at least in that form that you found it. So you get higher quality out of it. The costs go down. You're not spending all this time in break-fix cycles, right? You're getting that rapid test feedback, and so you're fixing stuff immediately. All of that translates into higher quality features getting out the door faster. And from the developer, I've seen developers, have a very difficult time embracing the sort of test-driven culture, but it doesn't take long for them to see the larger results. Your velocity picks up greatly, and the main thing is the engineers are moving on to the next feature set. They're going on to the next problem, solving the next big architectural problem faster, and they don't have to be interrupted like a month later, like it is now with a lot of a lot of the agile shops, a lot probably how a lot of you are working right now. Is the QA team is trying to keep up within the sprint, or maybe they're a sprint behind, or maybe you're not even doing agile. Maybe you're still kind of waterfall, and you're not getting test results till weeks or months later. That was certainly how it was at FIS when we were doing mobile banking. Before we started implementing continuous integration and continuous testing. By the time we got around to some of these, we had over 40,000 tests that we had to run for a major release that would happen twice a year. You wouldn't get test feedback to developers for months later. And then you had to have the developer have to remember what they did 4 months ago and then go and try to fix a bug, which it has inherent risk built in. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. So if we can... So those are the key advantages, and hearing straight from the horse's mouth from Federico. So thank you, Federico. Can we move on to the next slide? Yeah. So now we want to talk about what we. Okay, so what do we have to do to get there? Okay, this is great, Stephen and Federico. I hear all these wonderful, happy things about how CD is amazing and cool and faster and cheaper and all these wonderful words, but tangibly, what will it take for us to get there? So, Federico, why don't you jump in?
Sure. Sorry for interrupting before. So we have talked about all this, the greatness that continuous delivery brings, but we haven't talked about how to get there, and we haven't mentioned that it is tough and you need work to do it. So the first thing you need is to change your organization culture. I mean, you need to empower your people. You need to promote teamwork. And what this means, I mean, for somebody to be continuously motivating, pushing forward to get their features into deployment, they need to feel responsible for what they're doing. They need to feel owners of their work. They need to, they need to work together. I mean, you need developers interacting with QAs all the time, and trusting in their work and trusting in DevOps work and trusting in their automated processes. This needs trust. I mean, you're never going to achieve this if your organization members do not trust each other. If I do not trust a QA team, I'm not going to push forward to move a certain feature to production. I'm not going to push forward for the DevOps team to automate something. This is something the organization has to push, and all the team members and everybody in the company has to push forward to get. And the organization has to reinforce these values. I mean, you need to let people know that you are looking forward to continuous development, that you want this to happen. I mean, there are certain companies that promote people or only put focus on the time a person has been in the company and not on what that person does, what he does to how he works on the team and stuff like that. So it's a key point that the organization let everybody know that we are moving towards continuous delivery. But there is not only this is not only an organization culture change. It's more than that. So please let's go to the next one. You also need to change your organization structure. I mean, most organizations are built, or software companies are built based on teams that do not work on a product. I mean, they are separated. I have my development team, my QA team. They are not mixed in service-oriented teams, people that work together and develops a line of products. This is not only helpful for the development of a certain project or of a certain feature. It involves more than that, because teams that work like this, that have a line of products, have knowledge, and knowledge that it's valuable organization-wise. So if you one day have a problem with one of your softwares or one of your products, you can go straight to that team and tell them, okay, this is what happened, and they'll know how to fix it. They'll get it quicker. They'll have the tools to do what you ask. Other thing that you need to do if you want to move faster is you need to automate your repetitive tasks. So it doesn't worth to have 100 QAs, 100 people in a QA team that is repeatedly doing manual testing once and again over the same things. You may want to create a bunch of, or have fewer members of a QA team building automated tests that can be run every day by a machine and does it faster. Accelerate deployment processes with automated tasks. Also build tasks, dependency tasks. Everything can be automated to make it faster and smoother. One thing that Stephen mentioned before, I said the adoption of new development processes like BDD or TDD. I mean, testing is a key part now of software development. Automating it's as important as unit testing, as any other kind of testing. You need to have tests all over your development process, not just at the end or manual testings. You need to make sure that that your software is working on every step and everything's working smoothly. You need a bunch of automated tests. You need your product owners to focus also on building code quality. That's achieved with processes like BDD, in which everybody understands the same language, and you are testing what needs to be tested. The developer develops what needs to be developed, and life's better like that. And something else we need to define is who's testing what at what point. I mean, for sure, developers will need to write unit tests, integration tests, and they'll have to grab UI tests. They'll have to pick a lot of more work, which will at the end be less work because you'll have less bugs, quicker feedback. The QA team will need to pick end-to-end test approaches. They'll need to create automated tests that interact with the application directly. In my opinion, those are one of the most important tests you can write. And DevOps, your DevOps team will surely have to test their stuff. They'll have to have performance tests, security tests. So everybody at the end is going to be writing tests and building quality on your software from scratch. And there is one last set of changes your organization will need to make, and this is the adoption of new technologies and processes. We almost all know what a collaboration tool is, what source control is, what continuous integration is. There are a bunch of tools almost every company is using, but we need to put all this knowledge to work. We'll need all of our teams interacting together, collaborating together. We also need to know the state of our software. How is it going? How the parts are working? We need monitoring tools. We need real feedback, writing time of what's happening. And our key point here, it's that most products have a production environment in which clients interact, or every product otherwise won't work. But you also need a development environment, a testing environment. You need a staging environment that reproduces production, where you can see the same thing that's happening in production in staging. Staging, it has hard names too. You need a development environment in which QAs or people can look of their changes right away, even without committing. People or QAs jumping into developers' machines to see what they're doing right in that moment and find bugs even earlier. And something else I didn't mention is the importance of having small deployments. I mean, you can have a big monolithic app that takes 45 minutes to deploy. Otherwise, everybody will be afraid of not even to deploy. And I used to work on a company that had a monolithic app that take an hour and a half to build. So imagine if you are trying to deploy that. Imagine if you are trying to move that to production with 100 people committing at the time. It is impossible. So you'll have to divide your apps in smaller apps, make smaller deployments easier to manage, to be able to move and to get this right. And well, maybe that's it. Probably you want to say something?
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, on one hand, don't let it overwhelm you. There is a lot to this, but we don't want to shy you away from this. There are tools now. Jenkins has come a long way, and tools like and many other tools like that have come a long way just in the last year. Tools like Docker and containerization and advancements in virtual imaging, that has really come a long way, and which I'll speak to that in a second, and one of the practical examples that we're going to talk about. So your deployment pipeline, and you're pumping out very small releases to production, 20, 30, 50 times a day. You're leveraging, tools like Jenkins and Docker to be testing against, a real representative environment. So when he's talking about, well, you need to have multiple environments, well, absolutely, you need to have multiple environments. But, it's you click a button and bam, you got an environment, and it's a real environment. You don't have to go set it up. It's virtualized, and it works. right? It's not some mystical, magical thing. You know, it was 3 years ago. It's not anymore. And, you know, to complement what he said around, you know, well, who tests what? You know, at the end of the day, everyone is contributing to quality. It changes for the QA team as well, and changes for your IT and DevOps team. You know, there is a different paradigm. You know, the QA team needs to be much more focused on automating. You know, and if your team does not have some solid automation skills, solid scripting skills, understanding about frameworks, well, first of all, we can help you. We all can help you with that. That's part of why we're doing this webinar, is because we know how to do that. But that is one of the key areas that the quality assurance team is going to have to bolster and have to get better at. So even though these last 3 slides, there's a lot of, you know, cultural, functional, almost spiritual, different ways of looking at delivering your software. It does seem sort of overwhelming and daunting, you know, but again, tools have come a long way, and experience by users of the tools have come a long way, that we can help, you know, and to help you get there. Can we go on to the next slide? So continuous testing, I mean, I think we've been really drilling the point home around, you know, automate testing, automate testing, automate testing. And so please let me say it again. Automating your testing is really at the core of continuous development, continuous delivery. You know, better living through robotics is what I say, and building out that test feedback. Everyone's contributing, you know, to that test scope. And one thing that I believe is really okay is if you have overlap from what the QA team is, the test scope of what the QA team is delivering, is overlapping some of the test scope of what the engineering team is delivering, you have some kind of overlap, that's okay. I know some people say, gosh, well, we won't test that because I know you're going to test that. No, that's not valid. The thing is as a QA team, and we're building some kind of scenario-based, maybe we're leveraging APIs and we have some kind of mock, and we're building some kind of functional end-to-end test. And the developers may be, you know, doing the same kind of thing. We're coming at it from 2 different angles, 2 different vectors. It's sort of a bottoms-up versus top-down approach. And you will find different issues that way. You will find different issues. Trust me. I have, and I'm sure we will continue to. So, so building out, automating your tests, understanding what the scope of your tests are, having a culture of building quality in up front. The QA team is supporting the developers, the software engineers and tests, the quality engineers, the test automation architects. At the end of the day, you're supporting the developers. That's how I see it. You know, we are supporting the developers so they can get the feedback immediately. You know, and the QA team's going to be doing load performance tests, security tests, as well as the DevOps folks. The DevOps are taking more of an infrastructure approach, right? They're looking at, you know, what is the entire system as a whole and testing that full infrastructure. You know, that's going to include many different things like the security and load, like Federico said. And that's going to cross over into QA. That's fine. That's okay. Again, images and environments and, you know, test frameworks, you know, they come up on demand, and we're all contributing to it. So if you can go to the next slide, you know, so that, you know, going to the next slide, the point, you know, is that it becomes this team sport. You know, I'm really seeing a blurring of the lines between, you know, development, QA, and DevOps, which is I just attended a conference a few weeks ago, a Better Software Agile DevOps conference, and it was 3 different conferences in one, you know, that came from each angle that I'm describing, and, you know, but everyone was sort of all saying the same thing, you know, and it seemed very appropriate that all those 3 disciplines were under one roof at one large conference from the Better Software magazine team. The blurring of the lines between engineering, QA, and DevOps is really happening. And it is becoming a service-oriented team, you know, not just a feature select team, just one team's working on the payment module and one team's working on the, well, you can have that, but you have a team that has everybody in it, you know, and in it together. And they're empowered to get that stuff out the door together as a team, and they have these tools and they have these techniques. So with that, can you go on to the next slide? Okay, so so yes, I think we've been once again drilling some of these points over and over, and very much on purpose. You know, I really want to light a fire under all of you who are attending today. Thank you for attending, and I want to light a fire, and hopefully some of our passion around this you could take away and go with you, because it works. You know, we see it working, we are feeling and experience it working, and we are getting features and delivering out the door faster. We are delivering for customers faster. You know, people are happier. They're making money faster. You know, it's working. You know, so, and that comes from this improved culture. It comes from, you know, again, building that quality in up front, taking the time and building it up front. Everyone owns quality. I know, you know, those are words that we've heard over and over again, but this is a real tangible example of that working. And I can't stress it enough. You know, so and there's, if you haven't read Jez Humble's book on continuous delivery, go out and check it out. You know, I mean, there's so many different examples now, over and over, of the success of continuous delivery, and it's only going to get more pressure beyond just the fact that your competitors may be using this methodology. You know, things like the Internet of Things coming at us with, you know, the massive scale of devices coming online to our networks, and all that connectivity, all that bandwidth, all the data, that's going to put more pressure on you. You know, within the next couple, within the next 3-4 years, it's going to be massive. So, you know, please hear the canary in the coal mine that it's chirping loudly, that people are moving faster, pressure's coming at us exponentially from these new technologies coming in, and there are real tangible solutions to be able to keep pace and to thrive in this environment. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Okay. So we're getting close to the end here, and thank you all for staying with us. So we want to talk about some of the real tangible examples of what we have seen, and we'll do this briefly, and Federico will start, and then I'll give you my feedback, and then we'll move on to Q&A. So Federico?
Sure, thanks. So I want to give a picture of how was the project I'm working on at the beginning. So when we started, the project had monthly deliveries, so code went to production once a month. We had a huge monolithic solution with more than 1.5 million lines of code. It took for integration tool 1.5 hours to build the solution, and almost the same time to deploy it. And we were like 75 developers writing code on the same thing. So imagine it triggering builds every half an hour, and each build took 1.5 hours. So it was not really reliable. But the owners of this product realized that was happening. We also collaborate in that. And we said, well, this has to stop. We need to move towards smaller deliveries in less time. They were actually embracing the idea of continuous delivery and said we need to move towards that. So it all started with the development and the QA team. In fact, we are dividing into multiple service-oriented teams in which we have a bunch of developers, QA teams, a product owner, and a lot of roles there playing at the same time. So we said, okay, the first thing we need to do is we need to start unit testing. We're not doing it at all. And the QA team was writing automated tests, but totally not oriented to the requirements. So we also said we need to adopt some our development model. BDD was decided. We started implementing that. So we grouped in teams. We said, okay, we are going to start writing the requirements. Everybody all together. Let's do this. We started unit testing. It had a lot of resistance at the beginning. Nobody really knew how to do it, so we have to try to take a lot of courses. We have to spend a lot of time figuring it out. We got there at the end. We started QA team started writing automated tests. We as developers and also an architecture team started dividing these huge monolithic apps into several hundred of solutions. I think there are 200 right now. 200 solutions, small pieces of the whole project that can be deployed individually. So DevOps really did a great job there, accelerating the deployment processes, configuring our integration tools, writing script, automating tasks, building a whole framework for the test to run and report results in every step of the process. So we implemented policies. We said no, nothing is going to be deployed if it has even one unit test broken. So that's unacceptable. Every test needs to pass before something is deployed to production. And we are getting there. We're truly getting there. We reduce our time span of deployment to almost nothing. We can deploy from 1 minute to the other. As Steven mentioned, we included also config flags, so we can turn on or turn off features on demand. If we are building something and we don't want to show to clients till we are completely sure it's working and we want to test it in production, when we deploy it, we hide it, and then when we feel confident to release it, the product owner or the product owner takes a decision and says, okay, this is ready, let's release it. We release it instantly. I mean, it has been a great experience. It has been great to see how this evolves, and I mean, it's been amazing. I can mention a whole lot of our policies and methodologies we had to adapt for this to happen. I think the point is clear, and this is great. It's great to try, even if you never get there. I mean, even starting doing it, it's progress, and it'll make your process better. It'll make it cheaper. Everything. So I highly recommend it.
Right on. I'll try to keep mine quick. Thanks, Federico. I'll try to keep mine quick. We're getting close. We want to make sure we have time for Q&A. Recently, the last client, Trizic, a very small startup in the financial services, went from no deployments for their product. It was a web application. There was no deployments. We didn't even know how to deploy it. And within 6 months, we were delivering about three deployments a day. Within 6 months. And like, gosh, 3 doesn't sound like a lot, but holy mackerel! To say that, those went out fully tested, including some baseline security and performance stuff out the door. I mean, that's a huge statement. That included setting up really stringent policies around, code reviews, like you had to have a +1 before you checked anything in. Like Federico said, had every test had to pass. we built a culture around if the build failed, it was like a priority one, severity one, like a production outage. You know, that's how we treated every time the build failed. Like it was all hands on deck to make sure the build stayed green. We leveraged tools like Jenkins and Worker and Browser Stack and Docker and many other tools to make creating images, creating environments no harder than pressing a button. It was very simple for the QA team to go spin off and do exploratory testing. Because all that automation was running in the background, the QA team could do exploratory testing, which is arguably where you find some of your most hardest to find, critical, nasty bugs. So it built time in for the QA team to do more experimentation, sort of continual experimentation and continuing testing that way. So it was remarkably successful, and it's only gotten bigger and bigger, you know, since then. So it's a fantastic example. With that, we're sort of end of our presentation portion, and thank you so much for listening to us talk, and hopefully you've heard a lot of the passion coming from the sort of exciting results that we are seeing personally and from ourselves and from our clients, and with what continuous delivery is offering with real tangible results. And I'll pass it back over to Charles.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Federico. It's been fascinating listening to you and learning about continuous delivery, and certainly your passion came across. I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Stephen or Federico, that you can do so either via Twitter using the hashtag #ConchDelivery, or you can just very simply type in on the GoToMeeting on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can type in the question there, and we'll be delighted to stay on the line for a few minutes to take your questions. But actually, during the course of the webinar, we actually had one question which has already come in to us. And that question is, how do you do continuous delivery with mobile?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's tricky, but you can do it, you know, for sure. There are, when I was at FIS Mobile, we had over 3,000 apps in market. I think it's even more than that now, banking apps and mobile banking apps in market. So the need to be continually testing against apps was critically high. You know, we leveraged, at the time we built our own device clouds, because this was several years ago, before device clouds have become, you know, pretty commonplace almost at this point. But you know, it was through a combination. Yes, you can do continuous delivery with mobile, leveraging both, you know, emulators and simulators, you know, earlier in the process, like from in the development and earlier side, automating tests against that. And then as you know, get further down onto the QA side, again, this is, I probably shouldn't say the dev side and the QA side, but hopefully you get what I'm saying, that because it's all happening all at the same time. You know, it's all these pipelines happening in parallel. But you use real devices and device clouds when you're getting into more of this functional regression, you know, end-to-end type tests. So yes, it absolutely can be done. There's plenty of providers. There's plenty of solutions around this. I've seen it and I've done it, and it's difficult to get right, you know, but it can be done right. So you just got to know what you're doing. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Stephen. Let me just check to see if any other questions are coming in. So 1 second. And I see we have another question, and that is, you know, for a large enterprise firm with legacy systems, now how do you bring that to such an organization where change is really hard?
Well, it's really hard. Because people have been set in their ways, especially when you have, you know, like a large organization, like when I was with FIS, you know, they have 45,000 employees, and so managing risk for the company is critical. You know, when you're managing billions and billions of dollars in assets for clients and customers, so making change happen is challenging, but it's not impossible. It's just challenging. And the best way to do it is simply to, pick one small thing, one small project, and break off like a spike team or a sort of a separate sprint team made up by maybe one of your more senior developers and more senior quality engineers, who builds test architecture, and do pilot a small project, in the continuous delivery way. If you could afford to give it 30 days, that's great. I've been able to show results within that time, which is what we did. With exactly how we did it in that organization is we picked a very small project. We dedicated to splinter off some of a couple of senior folks into a very small sprint team, and they ran with this model. And it was in less than 30 days they started seeing, really fantastic results. And then, the speed and the higher quality and the cheaper and the faster, all the things that I've been talking about in this webinar started to become evident to the business owners and to the executives. That started to be seen by them, and of course that tickled their fancy, and that just helped it, help support the cause, and it sort of took off like wildfire after that. So start small, pick something, pilot it, show the results, move on, and you build momentum.
Super. Thank you, Stephen. I see at the moment we don't have any further questions which have come in. I do want to mention that if you, in hindsight, looking back on this presentation, if you do have questions that come to you, please do reach out to us. You can see there on the slide, we've got the contact details of Federico and Stephen on the slide there. But I notice we're nearly at the very top of the hour, so I want to start bringing this to a close. Stephen, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Just a couple of quick things. One is this works, and I hope you have heard the passion in our voices in stating so over and over again, and I hope that has lit a fire and it makes you think more about it, and preferably makes you take action, because this is something real. As evident by a lot of these large financial organizations, e-com organizations that are using this on a daily basis, 24/7. So to that, I would like to offer all of the webinar attendees, if you're interested, I'll offer a 30-minute free consultation with me, and we could talk further about your own situation and maybe challenges you're having. And if there's anything I can provide in those 30 minutes, I'd be happy to do so. So please reach out to the contact information on the screen now if you're interested. And with that, thank you all for attending. Thank you all for the opportunity to let me share our experience and passion about this topic.
Super. Thank you, Stephen. And I'd certainly like to echo that to everyone on GuerrillaQA. Thank you very much for joining today. We will be posting the slides online. We'll be posting recording of the session. You can also look back at the tweets we've been sending out. So certainly do look at this and let us know if you are looking for more information, or if in any way we can help you with our services. With that, I would like to say a very big thank you to Stephen for joining us as our guest today. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you to Federico for sharing your insights as well. It's been great having you. And thank you all for the audience for joining us. With that, I'd like to say thank you and have a good rest of the day.